Negotiating strategy. Negotiating strategy is going to help you whether you're at a flea market, a thrift store, or dealing with somebody from Craigslist. Anytime you're dealing face to face with someone, that's when you're going to pull out some of these negotiating strategies and tricks. Now, I've learned a lot of these from the real world, from actually negotiating at flea markets. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up selling at flea markets, so I come from the world of being able to negotiate prices. So let's look at a few of these strategies. I think they'll really help you to get amazing deals. The first one I call, how much is this? And as you can see here, I say, don't name it, okay? Have you ever heard that phrase, you know, when there's a family that picks up a stray puppy or a stray kitten, and they say, don't name it because you get attached to it? Well, this is a similar take on that. This is what we're talking about here, is when you pick up an item, let's say you're at a flea market and you pick up an item, and let's say it's a toy, okay? So you're picking up this toy, and instead of telling the seller, how much is this toy? Or let's get even more detailed. Let's say that it's a Star Wars action figure, okay? So instead of asking the seller, how much is this Star Wars toy? Or how much is this Star Wars figure? Okay? We don't even want to give it that credibility or that weight. So what we want to do is just say, how much is this? That psychologically gives the seller a sense that you're not that interested in it. You're just kind of curious. You're not really attached to the item. See, if you were attached to the item, you'd know exactly what it was and you would call it what it was. So by saying, how much is this? You're automatically devaluating the item in the seller's eyes as well as in your own eyes. And it helps to kind of start the conversation off as, you know, a little less valued in terms of that item. So very often when I say, how much is this? The seller will hesitate a little bit, and then sometimes they'll offer a lower price because they feel like, wow, I got to reel this guy in. You know, he's not that attached to it. He's not that excited about it. Or they'll work harder at trying to sell it to you. So it's just a little, seemingly very mild ploy to reduce the value of the item in their eyes. That's the how much is this strategy. Then what I do, as soon as they give me a price, I instantly make a grimace and I put the item down really quick. Now, I do this when I know there's nobody around me that's going to pick up the item and grab it and buy it right away, okay? So be sure that you're aware of your surroundings, and if there's nobody else around you and you say, how much is this? And they give you a price, you immediately just put it down and almost act like you're mad or you're offended that they gave you such a price. Like, how ridiculous, you know, that kind of a look. So you immediately put it down and you just kind of start to walk away. And that's the walk away and linger strategy, okay? If you're really interested in the item, the last thing you want to do is show interest in the item. So you walk away and you start looking at other things. But you've already implanted in that seller's mind that, wow, I charged too much for that because he just put it down, wasn't even interested. You know, I guess he wasn't that interested in the item. What that does in the seller's mind is it makes them want to sell the item to you even more. It makes them want to appeal to you and make a deal somehow. It's real interesting psychology. And the reason I know this is I was a seller for many, many years growing up. You know, I started selling at flea markets when I was 7, and all the way till I was about 20, 21 years old, I was selling at my parents' flea market business. And so I've been on both sides of this. So that's why I can tell you this is a very, very effective strategy. How much is this? Don't name it. Instant grimace, put it down, walk away, but linger, hang around in the area, maybe look at a few other things, maybe even do it again. Ask, how much is this? And they give you a price and just put it down and linger again, you know. And then what you might do is say, well, the problem is, and now you give a problem. What's the reason that you don't think it's worth that much? Now, this is an unspoken conversation. You're not saying it's not worth that much to me. You're not overtly saying I'm interested in this item. What you're saying is the problem is, and then you say, well, it's got this nick right here, it's got this scratch, or it doesn't work, or it's missing its batteries, or it's missing this part, or whatever. So you give a reason why, in your mind, it's just not worth that much to you. This is a great statement to say, well, the problem is, because now you're giving the seller a problem that they can solve. How can they solve it? By offering it to you at a lower price. I call this the second time's the charm. Sometimes you're just going to completely walk away and not even, you're going to do the instant grimace and put it down and then just walk away. You're gone. And now that really kind of makes the seller feel like, wow, I asked way too much for that. Maybe next time I'll offer less. So the second time's the charm. This strategy is where you come back. You might go down one aisle or down two aisles and then come back. And the second time you say, what's the best you'll do for this? Now you're showing that you've got some interest, but you're not quite interested at that price that they quoted you. So you say, what's the best you'll do for this? Or what's the best you can do? And not even, you're just holding the item and you're just saying, what's the best you can do? Now, because they remember you, trust me, you've made an impression on them, a negative one, right? Because they want to sell the item, they'll typically knock the price down. And sometimes they'll knock the price way down because they're feeling like, man, this might be my only chance to sell this item. So that's called the second time's the charm. And that's another great way to go because you've done the walk away, you haven't lingered, you just walked away. And now that you're coming back, it's almost like you're saying, hey, I'm going to give you another chance to do a good job here. I'm going to give you another chance to make a deal. And when you do that, you're still in control, but you're opening up the conversation again. All right, and then the last strategy that I'm going to show you here is the I'm on my way out technique. This works awesome when you've gone through the whole flea market and you made a mental note of which items you wanted to come back to. These are items that maybe you weren't that urgent about buying at the beginning. They were items you could just put down because maybe they were just borderline. They weren't quite priced right, but at the right price, you would jump on them. So what you do is you come back to that spot and you say, hey, I'm on my way out. What's the best you can do on this item? This is a great technique because assuming it's true and you are on your way out, you probably have a few bags of goodies or a few items with you showing that you're a serious buyer, showing that you're not just messing around and you actually have been buying stuff at the flea market. And when you have bags of goodies or other items that you've purchased, it shows that you probably are on your way out because you've bought stuff and you're now leaving. So this is great because when you say I'm on my way out, it kind of triggers, they remember you a little bit, and it's also saying subconsciously, this might be your last chance to sell this. I was the only one or the only person that was, somewhat interested. If somebody else were more interested, they would have purchased it, but they haven't. So I'm on my way out. What's the best you can do is kind of ringing the bell going, hey, we better make a deal here or your dollars are leaving out the door. And this has worked tremendously well for me in many, many times. I remember once I saw a Tony Robbins DVD set that I ended up selling for $120, and I got it for $10 using the I'm on my way out technique. And there's another thing about this, and that is that when you are on your way out, you're seeing the flea market at a different developed stage, because flea markets develop over time in the morning. In the very beginning, at the very beginning of the morning, things are just starting to be put out. Then as the morning goes on, more and more things are being put out, and things are being put out in a more organized way. And then as it matures, all the stuff is put out that could possibly be sold. So there's a kind of a developing process, and that's one of the reasons I recommend that you walk the flea markets more than once, maybe twice. If you're really active and really in shape, maybe 3 times, because it actually literally changes from moment to moment as more and more stuff gets put out. So the I'm on my way out technique is awesome. It works great. It gives the seller a chance to sell that item to you before you leave out the door, never to be seen again.